Hello and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where we dive deep into regional headlines. I speak with leading policymakers and business leaders. I am Katie Jensen. Just days before the extraordinary and highly anticipated Arab League summit, we sit down with His Royal Highness Prince Turki bin Faisal, former Saudi ambassador and intelligence chief, to explore how Saudi Arabia views President Trump's controversial Gaza plan, what Saudi and regional leaders are discussing behind closed doors, and whether the international community is truly committed to achieving peace in Palestine. Your Royal Highness, thank you for joining us once again on Frankly Speaking. It's wonderful to have you back. Now, since we last spoke, the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories has become a lot more complicated. Firstly, we have the infamous Riviera of the Middle East statements by President Trump. And then on the other side, we have the ongoing but underreported escalation in the West Bank. Frankly speaking, do you fear a situation whereby a one-state solution is the only one left?
I don't know if we can call it a one-state solution because I don't think it will be a solution. If there is going to be a one-state with events like they are happening now, there's going to be definitely an apartheid state. And that is no solution, because it means the continued oppression of the Palestinian people and denial of their rights, not only for self-determination, but for equal representation in this so-called one state. So in my view, it's not going to be a solution, but rather a complication and a continued arena for disruption and conflict and bloodshed. And although since the last time we met, things have not improved, one thing that is still in progress is going to be the Arab response to what Mr. Trump presented a few weeks ago. That, I think, will determine how the course will be followed for the future. The present ceasefire, in spite of the continued Israeli unacceptance of it, if you like, and putting blocks in its implementation, is surviving. That is a good sign, but it is not yet determined whether to go to the next phase of this ceasefire. And that is going to be a big test for the ability of Netanyahu to survive as a prime minister. So we'll have to wait and see on that aspect.
And of course, we are expecting a potential plan or position from the Arab states and leaders in the coming week or so. But let me ask you a little bit more about President Trump's comments recently, because shortly after his plan that was announced to displace millions of Palestinians, I saw that you recently appeared on CNN wearing the Palestinian keffiyeh. Now, you spoke to Christiane Amanpour, where you said that President Trump's plan amounted to mad ethnic cleansing. Now, Prince Turki, I realize you're not currently part of the official Saudi government, but I did notice that your comments were not too different from the official Saudi position. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, the Saudi position was expressed within, I think, 20 minutes of the president's statement about the ethnic cleansing plan he has for Gaza. So definitely the official position is to reject that idea with all of its ramifications. And subsequently to that, of course, not just Saudi, but other Arab response to that has been very negative, and even worldwide response in Europe and in other places not accepting it. As I understand also, there is a substantial portion of opinion in the United States itself, which was horrified by the seeming acceptance of the presidency in the United States of the principle of ethnic cleansing. So I can say it's a universal rejection of what was presented by Mr. Trump.
And of course, Arab leaders are set to present a plan that we believe will focus on the reconstruction of Gaza without the need to displace Palestinians. But let me play devil's advocate for a moment, if you'll allow me, because I guess the counter argument to all of this is that if Palestinians want to leave their land, they should be allowed to do so. So, Prince Turki, let me ask you, if the Palestinians indeed do want to leave, whether it's because they're ill, they're sick, or they want to leave for humanitarian grounds, they should be allowed to do so, shouldn't they?
Well, since 1948 and even before that, Palestinians have left for other places. There are Palestinians working in the kingdom, there are Palestinians in America, in Europe, etc. No one has denied them the right to leave. What is surely a responsible response to that argument is that why aren't they given their right to return to their homes in Palestine? That is a more cogent and a more fair solution to the Palestinian problem. If they're going to leave the places where they are now to other places, that doesn't make sense. They would simply be continuing to be immigrants and continue to be second-class citizens, if you like. But if they're allowed to go back to their homes, as the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 194 established in 1948, that is the logical solution for where the Palestinians should go.
And of course, since then, we've seen President Trump and several other US officials have now watered down this idea, saying that they won't force it. So, Your Highness, if I can ask you, what are your thoughts on what really the strategy was behind this announcement? Do you believe it was a negotiation tactic of President Trump? Do you think it was a lot of hot air? Do you think it was originally only intended for US local consumption, particularly as we've seen the frankly shocking video President Trump has released this week that portrays Gaza as a resort with him and Prime Minister Mr. Netanyahu sitting on the beach sipping drinks?
Well, I would rather not say what I have in my mind to say about that. But in any case, I fail or rather, I will not attempt to explain what the thinking is behind Mr. Trump's activities. I don't think I have the capacity or the capability to do that. But what is important here is that the struggle for Palestine has not ended with the ceasefire in Gaza. We see the Netanyahu government doing similar things to what they did in Gaza in the West Bank, although on a slower pace than they did in Gaza. They're uprooting people in the West Bank. As you know, they have emptied some of the refugee camps in the West Bank and literally driven out by force the people who live in those camps to nowhere. That is unacceptable as well. That is a form of ethnic cleansing. And yet Israel gets away with it and nobody condemns it for it, especially not the United States. So I hope that the attention from the West Bank will not be diverted by what is happening by Mr. Trump's antics.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you again on that video. Given your expertise in decades of diplomacy, were you surprised by the video President Trump put out? Were you shocked by it? Or do you think this has now become normal from President Trump?
I don't know. Any shock is not enough of what could be a reaction to what he is up to. Some people have said that he does that in order to instigate or to inspire reaction in one form or another. Well, he doesn't need to do that, Yani, because definitely the brutality of the Israeli treatment of the Palestinians does inspire reactions, not just from the Arab world, but from the world community. And I must say, Yani, that throughout this brutal attack on the Palestinians by the Netanyahu government, the world reaction has been quite good. You saw the demonstrations that took place and are still taking place in various places around the world in opposition to this brutality and in support of the freedom and independence of a Palestinian state. That is a very healthy sign in terms of what the world thinks of what is happening in Palestine. I just hope that popular enthusiasm for support for Palestine will be equally rewarded by some actions, particularly by the United States, in being more fair-handed in dealing with the Palestinians.
Well, we know the Arab position has always been to be able to protect the Palestinian people's rights and their statehood. And of course, that was something we understand was discussed at the recent meeting that took place in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince held informal talks there with Arab leaders last Friday. Now, that was ahead of the upcoming extraordinary Arab summit that will be held in Cairo in the coming days. Tell me, do you have any insights as to how the Crown Prince's meeting went last Friday? And what do you think we are likely to see come out of Cairo in the next few days in regards to Gaza?
I really have no idea whatsoever. Of course, I was not party to the talks, and I have not seen any public statement about them. What I read in speculation, in media outlets, whether in Israel or America or the Arab world, I would wait until the meeting takes place and we see what is said by the officials themselves. I'd rather not speculate on what, if, and when, and how the Arabs are going to present their proposals to the world.
Well, something tells me that you, probably more than anybody, knows what is going on behind closed doors in regards to these discussions. But whatever the plan is, it seems clear that the Arab position is very firm against the displacement of Palestinians. But let me ask you regarding the actual reconstruction of Gaza as we look ahead to the future. It seems that the assumption is that Arab countries, and namely GCC, are the ones who are going to be footing the bill. So what guarantees are there that Israel won't destroy the infrastructure once again? And frankly, shouldn't Israel also be forced to pay, given the sheer destruction it has caused?
I have been saying this for some time now, that there should be a fund, a worldwide fund for the reconstruction, not just in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. And Israel should be forced to chip in to that fund. You correctly say, we can't have Israel every time we reconstruct in Gaza or the West Bank, the Israelis came and demolished what has been reconstructed. That is unacceptable. And I think from now on, it is an issue of finality rather than temporary or procedural actions that are taken to build and then await for the next round of destruction that comes from Israel. There has to be a finality for this situation by an end to the conflict. And the next phase of the ceasefire, as we have seen, foresees a permanent placing of the ceasefire, not just in Gaza, but in all of Palestine. That is the only way that we can guarantee that whatever is reconstructed can remain as a viable Palestinian state that can become independent and self-governing with all of the rights of its people.
Do you see Israel agreeing to that, though?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. The second phase of the ceasefire was worked on by the United States with Qatar and Egypt. So if the U.S. is going to stick by that commitment, it will have to walk the walk and not simply talk the talk.
Tell me, Prince Turki, do you see a role for Hamas in the future of governing Gaza, or as within the PA?
Well, we've seen already that the PA and Hamas have apparently reached some kind of agreement on who represents the Palestinians in the day after, as it were. And I will have to wait and see what the particulars are. When you say Hamas, there are individuals who are definitely neutral, if you like, and more in terms of not bound by party or by commitment to either Hamas or Fatah or any of the other Palestinian groupings there. Those are the people, I think, who should be in charge of Gaza and meeting the needs of the people of Gaza. So that is something I think that the Arab countries have publicly, I think, mentioned that they are hoping for.
Do you think that they will agree to disarm and become political only, though, and will the West accept them?
I hope so. Whether they will or not, I still have to wait and see.
Okay, well, let's shift gears a little bit. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the situation in Lebanon. We know the new Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, is expected tomorrow to visit Saudi Arabia. Now, there's obviously been drastic changes in Lebanon since the killing of Hassan Nasrallah and the weakening of Iran. Tell me, how would you assess the situation in Beirut? And do you think we're about to see a real reset in the relations with Riyadh?
Very much so. I think the kingdom has wholeheartedly supported the actions of the Lebanese parliament in electing the president. And now the president designated a prime minister, and I think they have announced a government that hopefully will take its place as the ruling government of Lebanon. And more importantly, I think there seems to be a Lebanese as a nation coming together to look forward to the future and not relive the past, in the sense that the approval of the government's program was done, I think, almost unanimously in the Palestinian parliament, in the Lebanese parliament. So that is a good sign. And I think the Lebanese people are tired of having to be the sacrificial lamb, if you like, for either sectarian or other political factions, whether they be Hezbollah or some other Lebanese parties in the course of the development in the future. So it is the Lebanese people, I think, who will be the safeguarders of this new direction. And I hope that the support that is coming to Lebanon, not just from Saudi Arabia, but from the world community, will help that government to become more effective in meeting the needs of the Lebanese people.
And of course, there's been a lot of talk from President Aoun making sure that Riyadh is his first destination for foreign visits. He's also spoken a lot about Saudi's historical role in supporting Lebanon. Tell me, Prince Turki, do you anticipate Saudis returning soon to Lebanon as tourists and investors as well? There's a lot of people saying this could be announced during the presidential visit.
Well, I hear from Saudis here that they're willing and anxious to be able, if you like, to go back to Lebanon. Those who have not invested yet, I think, are also thinking of the opportunities there. The Lebanese people are a very talented people, and Lebanon has always been a commercial hub for the Arab world. I remember my late father, King Faisal, used to say, in those days, of course, that Lebanon is the lungs of the Arab world. I hope it returns to be that, and that these lungs be healthy and free of any carcinogens or any bad elements that may affect its health.
Inshallah, I guess we will, time will tell.
Inshallah.
Let me ask you, though, about other reconciliation efforts that Saudi Arabia has been involved in recently. We saw them facilitating the high-level discussions between the US and Russia that went on recently. Now, we know the talks were not only about Ukraine, there were several other subjects as well. And again, I know you're not currently involved in the government, but tell me, what do you know about what went on during the talks? And when do you think we'll see both President Putin and President Trump in Saudi?
Well, I can tell you what has been published about that from both sides, the Americans and the Russians. They seem to have set a course forward on mutual return of diplomatic representation, and also mutual cooperation in not only politically, but also in terms of commercial and other enterprises that can bring benefit to their two peoples. As far as Ukraine is concerned, we've seen what Mr. Trump has apparently reached with Mr. Zelensky in terms of the rare earth elements that are in Ukraine that the Americans are planning to invest in, and other such activities. So the ball seems to be rolling on that side. And it's good to see that a potential for nuclear war between America and Russia has been decreased incredibly. And so that is a reassuring sign that from that aspect at least, that we do not face a nuclear holocaust that might have arisen had not this meeting take place. And just one other aspect of this, of course, is that Saudis are proud that they are the place where people are coming to find solutions. And it's not only the American and Russian engagement in Saudi Arabia, but also a few years back, if you remember, the kingdom was instrumental in bringing peace between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and between Djibouti and Ethiopia. And that is what the kingdom has been trying to achieve also in Yemen. The ceasefire in Yemen that took place a few years back could not have taken place without Saudi insistence on that ceasefire and working to bring it to the fore. So all of these things make the Saudis proud of their country and their leadership.
Okay, well, let me ask you a bit more about Yemen, because during a recent conference that was organised by the Saudi Centre for Commercial Arbitration, you alluded to the possibility of bringing Yemen into the GCC or forming a new council for the Arabian Peninsula that includes Yemen. Can you share a bit more on this idea? And if such discussions are taking place, what would be the terms and conditions there?
I put that idea forward many years ago, I think maybe 10 or more years from now. I think if that had been done sooner than what happened afterwards, we would not be facing the issues in Yemen that we're facing now. But unfortunately, the slow pace of Yemeni progress impeded that idea. The civil war that erupted in 2011 and subsequently was definitely a setback for Yemen's progress towards, if you like, joining the GCC to become an Arabian Peninsula grouping rather than simply a Gulf grouping. But I think it would be a viable idea once peace has returned to Yemen. There are still some things to be worked out between the Houthis and the legitimate government of Yemen, and I hope those things will come through. But it is still a work in progress.
Okay, so a work in progress. Well, Prince Turki, we're almost out of time, but before we go, I wanted to ask you about Arab News, which of course produces this program. Now, the newspaper celebrates its 50th anniversary this year, and I had a wonderful conversation with our editor-in-chief, Faisal, and he was telling me that you were directly involved in selecting a name for it. So take me through that journey. Tell me about the backstory involved there and why the kingdom decided to have a voice in English for Arabs.
Well, in the years BC, if I can put it that way, before COVID, back in the 70s and after the Ramadan war ended in 1974, the late Sheikh Kamal Adham and I were then advisors to the late King Faisal on issues of coordination with Egypt and other countries. One of our friends and colleagues in work, Hisham Hafiz, the late Hisham Hafiz, and his brother Muhammad Ali Hafiz, came up with the idea of setting up an English language publication in the kingdom to tell the English-speaking world what is happening in Saudi Arabia. So the discussions went on for a few months, and it was decided that the newspaper would be called the Arab News, and we got permission from the late King Faisal to establish the newspaper, and also to choose the color green for the front and back page of the newspaper to identify it closely with Saudi Arabia. And it was really the idea of the Hafiz brothers and the support of Sheikh Kamal Adham and myself that this publication came through. Hopefully, and also it will go on for perhaps another 50 years or more. But it has been a successful story. And Faisal Abbas, of course, has taken it to new dimensions with adding your presence along with the Arab news publication and other activities. So it's really a good story to tell that an enterprise like that can be what it is today from where it came from 50 years ago.
Your Highness, thank you so much for joining us. As always, such an inspiring message for all of us.
Thank you.